Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome to Lupus LA's Meet the Facilitators virtual panel. I'm Susan Bazarski, the Executive Director of Lupus LA, and I'm excited to have you join us today. We wanted to host a webinar for some time now to get the chance to have you meet the support group facilitators and learn about what makes these groups so special. Our support groups are designed to connect people all across the country and even across the world. Each of our facilitators has their own lupus journey, and these groups are special. They are led with great respect and understanding, and we encourage patients to join not only when they need support, but also when they feel that they have support that they can offer, right? These are patient-to-patient meetings, and we do know that our community gets a lot out of them. So let's meet our facilitators. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm going to ask that you each introduce yourselves, tell a brief story about your own lupus journey, and what inspired you to become a support group facilitator. Juana, why don't we start with you?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Juana Mata. I am a social worker and I am the co-founder of Lupus for Lupus. I was diagnosed with lupus in 2009, and how I started supporting others is after my diagnosis and not knowing what lupus was back in 2009. My sisters and I would just come together, especially Estela, my sister. She is the one that took the task of learning about lupus, getting the information, and bringing it to me and my family. And so we felt the need not only to support my family, but also to support others living with lupus, but also their loved ones and their caregivers. As we know, lupus doesn't affect the patient, it affects everyone as a whole. So we started the support group, and we also realized that the information that was found was not in Spanish. So that's one of the reasons why my sisters and I started our nonprofit Lupus for Lupus, and we started supporting both in English and in Spanish patients, caregivers, and loved ones.
Estela, you can join in that. I will say that Estela and Juana are Looms for Lupus. That's their organization, and they facilitate two of our support groups, a bilingual group and a Spanish-speaking only group. Estela, all you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Susan and Lupus LA, for inviting us. It is such an honor for us to be here today, not only as Looms for Lupus or as sisters living with lupus and or supporting those that live with lupus, but as a family for Lupus LA. We, like Juana said, we started supporting others, learning about lupus, and in our journey and in my quest to learning more, the only organization that I knew that had support groups and that had information available to me, near me, was Lupus LA. And that is why in 2012, I decided, how can we partner? How can we collaborate? How can we do this together? We can't do it alone. So why not work with someone that already has something in place where we can collaborate and join efforts? And that is when the journey with Lupus LA began. So Looms for Lupus and Lupus LA we do host the two support groups, the bilingual support group and the Spanish support group. And the unique thing about our support groups is not only do we incorporate loved ones and caregivers, we support them, empower them in the journey, but we also educate and empower the individual to not only learn about how they can support themselves living through this journey, but also empower them to use their voice when it comes to self-advocacy and advocating for themselves and their loved ones. Juana is alive today because of her self-advocacy. So for us, advocacy has been a huge component of the empowering our community and our members and our patients and caregivers. So I think it's very important to highlight that, like Juana said, lupus doesn't only impact the individual, it impacts the family and the community as a whole. So it is so important for the individual to, once diagnosed with this long, journey of living with lupus, that they feel empowered and supported. So the support groups are huge part of our community. So thank you again, Susan, for inviting us, and we are happy to be part of the Lupus LA family.
Thank you so much. Emmett, why don't you share a little bit? So Emmett's group with Dion is fairly new and male only, which, sometimes men in this disease are a little bit left behind. So Emmett, can you share a little bit about your journey and your group?
Absolutely. Thank you guys again for having us. And as the Mata sisters mentioned, that not only the patient has lupus in their families, but from my standpoint, I like to express that men get lupus too. I've been diagnosed for going on February, will be 30 years for me, and it's been a journey. And I know I am alive today because of self-resilient and the fact that I decided that I love life. But let me tell you, back in the 90s, there wasn't resources that I could have reached out. None of us, I don't think, was around that I knew that can help me understand what lupus was. So I tried to maintain life as normal. I try to maintain all normalcy as much as possible. But until I got diagnosed with a brain disease that took me out of my career, I decided to talk about what's been going on with me for the past, at that time, was 25 years debilitating me, what's going on. And so when I didn't realize I had a story till I told my story. And when I told my story, I realized that there were men out there that nobody was talking about that was affected by lupus. So I didn't know if I was alone or doing this. And then I met my brother in lupus, Dion, and found out that he was advocating for the same cause that I was, to give that exposure that men get lupus as well. So we kind of graduated from our own individual advocacies after we built really big platforms to a platform joining each other, which we call ourselves the Lupus Dream Team. We are a team that, just like in the Dream Team in the sports and the pros, they're looked up and admired as their abilities to do what they do. And I look at that too as, man, it's lupus. We're doing what we got to do to keep this race going. So we decided to have events, we decided to have support groups, but teaming up with Lupus LA kind of gave us a voice, a louder volume to our mission that we're doing. We've reached out to all kinds of people. I've done all kinds of summits to where I've been around on all these platforms, just representing men with lupus. Men needs to know that it is okay for them to not be okay and to understand that what they're going through is accepted. We don't have to downplay anything that we go through to look bigger and stronger, because we are that. Just mentioning what we're going through and being vulnerable at times to explain that, we're not afraid of anything, especially when it comes to an illness. So we're trying to give a voice to those that really don't feel that they can voice out, because in lupus, if you're not familiar, 90% are women. And we are just trying to get to that status of being just as loud as the women when it comes to advocating. So thank you guys all again for all your advocacy for my fellow members on here, and then for you, Lupus LA, for putting us on your platform.
Thank you so much, Emmett. Jasmine, why don't you share a little bit? You've been with us for quite some time, running your support group. So please share a little bit about your journey and your group.
Sure. Thank you, Susan. Hello, everyone. My name is Jasmine Zinnerman. And though I don't have lupus, I was introduced to lupus at a very early age. My aunt was diagnosed, and she has since passed away. She lived well into her 80s, but she was a fierce advocate. And then when I moved to Southern California, when I started in my social services role, I had a direct report who turned into a friend. Still a friend, but she is living with lupus, and she went into ICU very early in the first couple of months. And this was due to complications from lupus. And so at that point, I kind of reconnected. I reconnected with some of my cousins and just started doing a lot more research and information on how I would be able to best support her in her recovery and then in her role like moving forward. And that turned into, as Susan was said, I've been doing this a little while. In 2017, I connected with Lupus LA, and I have been facilitating a group ever since then. And I think what makes my group unique is it varies. We have people at various points in their lupus journey. And so it's echoing what my peers have been saying. And the experience is it's nice for people to come there and connect. And so much of what they say is it's nice to be here where people understand, where people just get it. And also talking about advocating. That's a big part of what happens in that support group is not only people advocating for themselves, but advocating for each other, and giving recommendations and suggestions on an experience they had or how they helped someone else through it and those. And so in addition to this, I also serve as undergraduate faculty at Purdue Global University. And I'm just grateful to continue to be a part of this team and this journey. And so at any point, I hope you will feel free to join my group or any of the groups offered, because you're more than welcome. And you can participate or just listen in, whatever you feel most comfortable. But I think that's also the beauty of these groups is that there's a flexibility. And so it's for you.
It's a great point. It's a great point. Liz, who has also been a member of the Lupus LA family for a very long time and is facilitating our new teen support group, which we're really happy that we're able to provide. Liz.
Yeah, it's so exciting, really exciting stuff. Hi, everybody, I'm Liz, and as Susan said, I'm facilitator for the teen support group. I'm also a licensed clinical social worker that specializes in working with patients and their families with chronic and acute medical conditions. I worked in the hospitals for a really long time working with this population and then transitioned into my own private practice when I realized people could really use that additional support. I was diagnosed when I was 16 with lupus and RA, and at the time there were 0 teen support groups. All of the support groups were adult focused. And so a lot of times I was around people who weren't navigating school, weren't navigating teen relationships, talking about healthy relationships, talking about communicating with other teens or other kids, even siblings, or even other adults around what they were experiencing. So I really lacked that support and had to seek that out myself. When I moved to Los Angeles and started working as a social worker at Children's Hospital Los Angeles, Lupus LA was a critical support in us starting the Families Living with Rheumatic Diseases support group. This group had a teen component, it had a Spanish and English speaking parent component, as well as a siblings component. That group was a hit. The teen group was full almost every single time. We just had incredible energy in that group, incredible momentum. Some of that changed during COVID. So Lupus LA actually asked me if I would be interested in kind of starting that group up again with their support and through their organization. And knowing Lupus LA and their incredible support at Children's Hospital, I felt so confident in our ability to work together and provide this really essential service. Sometimes I'm in group and I just think like, almost like a patient that's 16 again, like, oh, I want to share my experience or share my feedback. And obviously I need to rein that in sometimes, but I think that my experience living as a teen with lupus has allowed me a little bit of a unique perspective that I get to meld with my professional experience in helping address things that teens are really not comfortable all the time talking with friends about, or they're not aware of some of the nuances of how they might navigate this situation, or even some of the strengths of their lupus and how that applies across their experiences in the moment, but really forever. that they can gain the toolbox now at an earlier age to apply to their lupus, but also other areas of their life moving forward. So I'm just so thankful Lupus LA was open to this. And I've worked so much with the other facilitators on this call and just feel proud to be a part of the Lupus LA family.
Thank you so much, Liz. And I also want to mention Jessica's not here, but she actually runs a young adult support group. And so we're very much trying to fill sort of all the ages and the needs as the young adults have a little bit of a different conversation than maybe the adult groups, though everybody's welcome everywhere, except for obviously where there are age restrictions. And of course, in Emmett's group, you have to be a guy. So I think that, I get a lot of phone calls from patients that are often hesitant about joining a group, sometimes feeling vulnerable. So we can open this up and you guys can sort of talk. What would you say to someone who was nervous or unsure about attending their first support group? Estella, why don't we start with you?
One thing I always say is it's okay to come and join, and you don't have to share every single thing of your life. So don't be scared. One thing I always say is anytime you share something, you might help someone else and you don't realize that you're helping someone. So coming in with an open mind about learning and sharing and just allowing yourself that opportunity to get the support and or give support, I think is great. So I would encourage everyone to try the different support groups. Not one support group is going to be your fit. You might want to attend several support groups until you feel comfortable. Every support group is unique. If you're a male, like Susan was saying, attend Emmett's. But if you are a spouse of that man that goes to that support group, if you want to learn, come to the caregiver support group. We're open to caregivers, loved ones, family members to join our support group. So it is very it's okay to join other support groups. You don't have to stick to just one.
Right. Anybody else about, how should somebody sort of deal with first-time nerves? Emmett, yeah, please.
Yeah, definitely agree with everything Estella said. One thing that I encourage, because I know guys are more reluctant to, even think about joining, but when I offer that, you don't even have to show your face on camera, you don't even have to speak, just listen. Once they get a touch of the conversation that me and the fellas have, the laughter, the empathy, the way that we encourage each other without even knowing each other, eventually we've made those silencers speak up over time.
Yes. Liz?
I want to just add too, like, we have fun. Like, a lot of our groups are, we add, there's humor, there's different ways that we, experience feelings and share feelings. It's not all depressing. I think that's something that often new people that are attending our groups are sort of shocked by, that they had a certain perception around how our groups were going to be. But once they got here, they saw that it was dynamic, that it wasn't what they were expecting, that it reflects the dynamic nature of all of our lives. I love that Estella and Emmett brought up, you don't have to be on camera. You don't have to be speaking, that you can really meet yourself where you're at, even in that hour, let alone that day, and say, what am I needing in this moment? Do I need to step back and maybe listen a little bit? Am I feeling like I can be really open and engaging? But we will meet you however you come. And come knowing that these groups are probably not what you're thinking in your head if you're scared. The last thing I want to say is sometimes vulnerability allows us to make the biggest change. So if we're feeling vulnerable, being able to acknowledge that and know that there's some really amazing shifts that can happen when we are feeling vulnerable. So even though it's scary, I often see kind of the best outcomes in people when they come in vulnerable.
Yeah. Jasmine? Oh, Juana, yes.
Yeah, so what I wanted to share is that, above everything is also the respect. We respect as facilitators, and when we're there, we share respect. We all receive the respect. And also, like you said, Liz, vulnerability. Oh my goodness, I can't even speak now.
You're good.
But yeah, I mean, the respect and just knowing that by you being there, you don't have to say anything, just listening, like Emmett said, and like Estella said, listening, being there, and, just enjoying the moment and learning from others. And you might also be able to feel better when you say something and you're helping another person. So definitely, just being present and allowing yourself to be there and just sharing and taking everything that you can.
Yeah. Jasmine?
Well, Estella, Juana, Emmett, and Liz covered it wonderfully. I would just add that it's a safe space. It is a
Great.
safe space, and along the lines of what they said, you will be surprised at how you feel, how it makes you feel, and how it moves you, and just how powerful being around other folks and being in that support group and that environment feels.
It's all beautiful. I spoke to a patient a couple of weeks ago who joined a group for the first time, and she actually told me when we spoke that she really didn't need help. So I encouraged her to go to offer help. And then she contacted me a couple of days later and she goes, "Okay, I was totally wrong. I loved everything. I needed to hear people advice and feedback, and it was so helpful." She goes, I really didn't speak very often, but I really gained so much from the other patients, which, that feedback, of course, is important. So I would ask each of you, what do you enjoy most about connecting with the lupus community? Sort of where you sort of get fed from, these groups and your sort of role in moving the group through. As you said, each group is different, right? You could have an agenda for one group, somebody could come in with an issue and it sort of morphs into something else. So as facilitators, how do you sort of find connecting with this community for yourselves? Jasmine, you want to start?
Sure, but Emmett came off if he wants to start.
Oh,
He came
sorry.
off mute. No, that's okay. Go ahead, Emmett. No, please.
Jasmine, ladies first.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So I would say though, it is the connection. It's just being able to, again, connect people. It's having the platform. So again, it's a credit to Lupus LA for providing the platform for then us to host and people to get together and say, okay, has anyone experienced this? What did you do when you experienced this? Like, okay, does anyone have recommendations? Okay, I'm going through this. That a lot of that happens in our group, and then it, as you were talking about, and then several other conversations and issues and things come up. And what is really amazing and awesome is seeing it come full circle. The most recent group, we got on and people were like, "Oh yeah, we were just texting. Like we were just texting about da 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 and connecting." And so even the connection that goes to outside of the group to being able to have support when they're not meeting. And so just that community is so important. And like I said, I see it. And even when people come to the group for the first time, like by the end, they're typically like, exactly what Liz said. Like, oh, this is not what I was expecting. Like there is humor and laughter and like support and we're talking and it just feels like a connection and a community of people.
I love that. Would anybody else like to add?
I do want to add something. Well, did you want to say something else, Emmett? So you can
Nope,
finish up.
go ahead, Estella. After you or after whoever.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is for me, it's a give and take. So I get to fill my cup because, as an empath, I'm always there to listen and I'm always there to see how I can help. But one thing that I have realized is sometimes, the other individuals help me. So it is very, you know, that vulnerability that Liz was talking about, you know, it's real and it's more like a family. So, you know, once you join, you know, you feel comfortable not only sharing your experience, but also asking for or seeking advice. And I will say, even though it does fill my cup to always be there and help, there are times where I have been helped myself. You know, now, you know, when I first started, I was more of a care partner, a loved one, supporting someone else. And throughout my journey, because it's been already, you know, over a decade that we have been facilitating, I have also acquired some, you know, autoimmune diseases along the way because, you know, it does run in my family. So it has been very beneficial to me as well to be able to live and go through these experiences within our support group and as a facilitator, but also as a person, as an individual living and helping others with autoimmune diseases in general. Because, you know, once you get one, it kind of they partner up and you know you may have more than one autoimmune disease, so it is very important to also have that vulnerability and accept the support when you're also giving it. And then the one other thing that I wanted to share is you never know where your experience might help someone else. I have worked in the healthcare industry for over 30 years, and I know I look like I'm 35. I was about 5.
Younger.
But the one thing that I realized is the hurdles that many people living with lupus go through and struggle with when it comes to healthcare access and equitable healthcare. And so for me to be able to, you know, lend a hand and give advice and kind of support them in navigating their healthcare access and giving and empowering them to use their voice and to also navigate the different things that they may be barriers that they may be facing when it comes to obtaining the best healthcare that they deserve as an individual. And you know, kind of going hand in hand, our minority groups are very much impacted. So it's also important for us to highlight that and deliver the messages in the language that they best understand and to have everyone feel included. And I think the one thing that Lupus LA has done was bringing us together. I mean, look at the screen. We are a group of diverse individuals working together, collaborating, helping each other. And I think that speaks volumes because not us as individuals, facilitators facilitating the support groups, but also as a community. So, you know, that's what fills my cup.
That's beautiful. Emmett, I would turn that to you and your dog, who made a guest appearance briefly.
He tried. He tried, and he's always like that. He's our little pug, is what we call him. So definitely agree with everything the ladies are saying as well. And in my group, our group for me and Dion, I think one of the biggest things that should I say, fills my cup is the camaraderie that we have with each other, the laughter, the jokes that we have with each other. Some of us never met in person. Most of us never met in person, but yet we're brothers for life because of this connection with lupus. We introduce everybody, no matter how many times you came. How was you since last month? And the stories that the guys tell, they tell me are things that they don't even talk to their partners about because it'd be hard for for them to understand. So for me, it as long as I've been advocating, no matter what status I'm at or anything, I need that. And then hearing the guys, man, Emmett, we needed this, we needed this. Again, that's just one of those things that I wish I could have said 25, 30 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I didn't until now. With this group that we got a solid, good bunch of guys, and it goes beyond our meetings. We check on each other between time. You know, we found out one guy was in the hospital this past meeting. I found out that people's been following up with him since he's still been in after our meeting. So it's just things like that, that the relationships that we have built, we know that we're all going through this fight. We're going through it together. We look forward to the meetings. We always tell people we do not have to wait for the next month to have to communication. We all have each other's phone numbers, and it's just something that I thought that I was on a nice plateau with my advocacy alone, but I realized I need everything. that I'm hearing from these guys. There is never enough support, never enough empowerment that you can receive. And when people are given it, you take it, it makes you stronger. It makes you feel like this is what's adding fuel to my fire and why we keep going. So and like Estella said, with all of us doing this as a community, there's nobody excluded. People are invited, even if you don't have lupus. And like you said, it's a good point. Any women out there that want to understand what their men are going through with lupus, or any men that have a wife with lupus that want to understand what we go through, definitely join. You got the space. You just got to click and register. That's it.
Absolutely. So look, I mean, you're all such warm, welcoming, incredible people, and it's really what makes these groups so special. And it's always such a pleasure working with all of you. I would say to sort of the last question, and everybody can sort of participate, is, we keep saying the word community, and for me, joining this organization, the sense of community within the patient community, the advocates, it's really quite unique and very, very special. So I will say to all of you, why is community so important when it comes to living with a chronic illness like lupus? What does community do, and why is it so necessary, really in life in general? Liz, why don't you sort of start us off if you'd like?
Sure. I mean, we are social beings. Like, we were made to socialize with other people, whether you have lupus or not. So in our very DNA, we are supposed to be engaging with other people. Community to me means that you feel validated by others that surround you, that you feel normal for once, that you have people using language that maybe other people don't understand. A lot of the teens come to our group and say, you know what, when I say tired to my friends, they're thinking, take a power nap, take a 5-hour energy drink, and kind of suck it up. And once they use the word tired in our group, for example, they know that someone else knows exactly what that feeling is. And you can tell when the light kind of goes on in the attendees' brains of like, this is community, actually. Community is other people saying, I hear you, I got you. Here are some tips and tricks, but you're also not pressured to use them. Like, you are your own individual. And sometimes instead of family, I like to say orchestra, because not everyone has a wonderful relationship with their family.
Right.
So instead, it's like, you are, let's say, a clarinet player, and you're in an orchestra of other people around you that have different sounds. And together, you come together to make an incredible piece, an incredible, performance. And that is because you're able to take in the information from your community, figure out what that means for you, and then refuel yourself and your community right back. And that actually serves so many purposes for our emotions, for our brain, and subsequently our physical health. So community is exactly what all humans need. And in particular, those living with lupus deserve their own community.
Very beautiful. Would anybody else like to share a little bit about what community sort of means to you and the importance of it? Yeah, Emmett?
I think the importance of it is also letting those know that they're not alone. When they know that there's a meeting going on, and you hear the word lupus and you have it, but yet you're not involved like that. You get interested and you want to hear what people talk about. And I know that was the case for men with lupus. And so that's why we try to put it out as much as possible. There's not that many in the community that we can say is such, big. But us, and I'm going to say it, yeah, but us. And because of that, people want to know, how are men, feeling about it. We had a special event our last meeting for this month, because one person on a big platform reached out to me and said that I'm the only male with lupus that they know of, and that they cannot get in touch with any men at all. And they know about the support meeting. So they had asked if they can at least join to see how these men are. And I was like, well, first of all, this is an all men's platform, and I understand by that. But let me talk to the guys. And her whole purpose was to really engage with men that really have lupus, and how do we, feel about certain things that come up. And man, she was just impressed. She really let the guys just all gravitated to her. The guys had no problem answering questions. It was just, again, we feel comfortable in this space, and there's nothing that held us back. So it's just the diversity again of people wanting to know what's going on. Men can look at us and say, wow, if these guys are going through it and they're able to talk about it, maybe one day I can. And as long as we can plant that seed that it is okay for us to go through what we go through, but try to come out on top, then we're doing something big. So the community is huge. We need that.
I love that. Yes, Juana.
And not only does it give us the support, the empowerment, but it also gives us hope. When we see others, I remember when I was diagnosed and we had one of our support groups, when we were there and we were all introducing ourselves, I was still nervous about, the condition, about lupus, and about, how long am I going to live? Back in 2009, you would hear that you live only 5 years. So in our support group, there was a lady, and when she introduced herself, she said that she had been living with lupus for 30 years. The first thing that I did is look towards my sister, and I just felt like I just wanted to cry, because that gave me hope. I knew that, I was gonna, well, with the hope that I was gonna live longer than 5 years. That was just incredible. And for my family to also hear that, that was just amazing. So the support group community is not only about the support, the friendship, the empowerment, but also, just the hope and positivity that we all bring when we're there.
I love that. Well, I want to thank you all for joining this conversation and sharing your stories and your insights. I hope that everyone that joined us today is feeling a little inspired and encouraged to possibly join a support group if you haven't before. And of course, if you have, come back. This is an incredible community, and we know that you'll gain something from joining. If you have any questions or you want more information, you can always look on our website, lupusla.org, and look up our support groups. You can also email us at info@lupusla.org, and we will guide you to at least a meeting. And then, of course, as everybody was saying, you can sample them all and find something that works for you. So thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for everybody that came in, and I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Just stop the live stream, and we're going to stop the recording now.